Oh, Paulo Costa is out of another fight. I am done with Paulo Costa, guys. Did you know that Francis fought Stipe in 2021 for only $600,000? And he actually said no to a multi-million fight deal because he didn't want to re-sign his contract. Did you know the UFC was forced to bring in sunset clauses into its fighters' contracts in around 2017? And the reason that Francis Ngannou didn't want to sign that new contract to fight Stipe Miocic for a multi-million-dollar deal is because it had a couple of fights on it and it would extend the contract. So he ended up just signing to fight Stipe for $600,000 plus pay-per-view points because his contract was going to sunset in 2022. Now, look where we are today with this absolute clown, Paulo Costa. It seems like he is worried that if he does a weight cut, he's going to lose all of his bodybuilding mass. And that is what he's focusing on instead of actually fighting. And at this point, if you are a fan of Paulo Costa, I am so sorry for you. He is such an annoying man to follow the career of. I mean, he has definitely upped his meme game and his likability, but if you're a fight fan, my God. So the news is out. Paulo is out of UFC 291. Just like he was out of UFC Perth 284. Just like all year he was going to be fighting Khamzat Chimaev. And now that's not happening. But it's funny because he's back at Twitter again and he's saying that he wants to fight Khamzat Chimaev again. Like, Paulo, we've already talked about this fight. You've already missed this fight. Paulo seems to be making a habit of this. He is talking more shit on Twitter than Terence McKinney and Conor McGregor combined. He is talking more shit than a million drunk Dillian Danis's. He's making less sense than 3 hours of Sean Strickland on the Joe Rogan podcast. Alex Jones makes more sense than Paulo Costa at this point with these fight call-outs that he keeps making every 6 months and his secret juice. Like, dude, is your secret juice never fighting? Is that your secret juice? Is that how you can say so just? You don't have to be in the USADA pool because you don't fight? But then my brain, it remembered the story of Francis Ngannou, probably because he has been in the news so much lately, right, guys? And I was thinking, that doesn't really click because didn't Paulo Costa sign a brand new deal with the UFC? Wasn't he all over social media saying that he had signed a deal that was giving him $1 million a fight? But then I don't know if I remember that story clearly, guys, because I'm pretty sure that Dana White and the UFC came out and said that Paulo was just talking shit. Like, they had never signed that deal. Check this out, guys. After his fight with Rockhold, Costa only had one fight left on his contract and was demanding more money for his next fight, which was seemingly to be against Whittaker, but unfortunately fell through. Now confirming that he, his manager, and the UFC have come to terms on a new multi-fight deal, also said that he's been offered a fight with Sean Strickland, that one fell out too, and may have another fight against Khamzat Chimaev in October at the recently announced UAE event. Now this is the quote from Costa. "I haven't signed the contract yet, but we've reached a deal with the UFC regarding the pay." Paulo Costa said this during an interview with PVT. "It wasn't easy, there was a lot of hard work, and I have to highlight my team." Now, that interview with PVT is what the entire news cycle ran with. But the deal, it seems like, was never actually signed. Like, guys, do you believe that the UFC is going to be paying Paulo Costa $1 million a fight? Now, the UFC came out and said that the fight with Whittaker was done. And when a fighter says it's done, they say it's done, and all they have to do is send out the paperwork. And that's sort of like the last thing that gets done because they vocalize it, they get the teams ready, they organize everything else. And the fighter already has a contract with the UFC to take a certain amount of fights over a certain period of time. So if the matchmakers call the fighter and the fighter's happy with the date and the time and they get a yes from that fighter's team, they assume everything's all good, this fight's going to go ahead, which is apparently where the UFC was at. And then Costa held out. And it's happened again. And it's happened again. And it's happened again. I think Paulo Costa originally signed his UFC contract deal somewhere around 2017. I believe he started in the organization around 2017. I haven't checked that, but I'm pretty sure he started in the organization around 2017. Had a multi-fight deal, had his last fight with Rockhold, and realized, if I don't fight till about the end of 2023, 2024. My deal with the UFC sunsets. So who actually has who by the balls here? It always comes down to whether or not you're a golden goose or golden egg kind of person. The UFC is the platform, and the UFC needs to remain strong and run itself as a company and as a business. We've had this argument multiple times, guys. It's got the performance institutes, it's got the doctors. It just saved a fighter on the undercard from dying because they did an MRI on him. Victoria Dudakova was signed to the UFC, had full surgery paid for before she even had a fight. Like, the UFC has healthcare. And what the fighters are talking about when they want healthcare is they want lifelong healthcare forever. Like, if they grew up in the favelas, or if they grew up doing drugs, or if they grew up like Sean Strickland and they get 3 fights in the UFC, never even make it onto a pay-per-view, they want lifelong healthcare. It's insane. That deal is never going to happen. No business could run itself. The UFC has goddamn shareholders. It needs to make a profit. Like, the UFC fighters, obviously everyone could get paid a little more, but they have a damn good deal. And Paulo Costa has a damn good deal as well. Whereas if you're a golden egg kind of guy, instead of a golden goose kind of guy, you see what the boxers are making. And you think every UFC fighter should be paid that, even though boxers on the undercard don't make shit. Boxers on the undercard don't have healthcare. Boxers on the undercard, you don't know their goddamn names. You know influencer boxers because they made their careers on YouTube, another established platform. If you don't have the platform, another video for another time. Paulo Costa is obviously the kind of guy that's sitting out until he gets all this money, and he's playing with you, the fans, to do it. He's lying to the UFC and saying that there is going to be fights coming up. They're selling that to the fans. The fans are getting all hyped up, and then Paulo Costa is pulling out of these fights and not fighting them. And then when he does get out of his contract, when it does sunset clause, he's going to go sign some shitty boxing promotion to do some shitty fight against Darren Till, probably in bare knuckle, who knows, and he's going to hype it up, and he's using memes to make sure you guys still like him, so you still buy the pay-per-views when that happens. Remember this. Remember this when he pisses off and then needs you, the fans, to buy his pay-per-views. How he played you for a year and played the UFC for a year. And you know what? Fair enough. There's going to be some people out there that love that. They're going to think that's a Giga Chad move and that's the way to go. And they're like, it's going to work. The thing is, this is going to work. But if other fighters start picking up on this, if other fighters notice what Paulo Costa is doing, if this is what he's doing, I could be like way off here. Paulo Costa could just be a moron that doesn't know what he's doing. But if this is what he's doing, if this is the game that his managers are playing, and other UFC fighters pick up on this, you're going to have a lot of cards set up that have a lot of people falling out of them, and then people just leaving the UFC. And there's going to be a lot of Twitter warriors that are using the UFC platform to not fight. And they're going to be playing you, the fans. I don't know. I don't know if this is the best move. I don't even know if this is actually what Paulo Costa is doing. It's just a theory, but this is the only way I can make sense of it. Like, otherwise, this is probably one of the reasons why you don't want to have a sunset clause. I understand, like, poor GSP. He hasn't been able to fight MMA in years because his contract doesn't have a sunset clause. But if you put it in there, you got Francis Ngannou holding up a division. You got Paulo Costa holding up fights. Like, these fighters can just sit out. Unfortunately, this is the ruthless world of business. Now, I know we are entertainment fans and we just want to see the fights, and everyone's got a bleeding heart, and the fighter should be paid lifelong healthcare for life, and they should all be free agents, and nobody watched boxing in the 90s because of these reasons. But if you're going to have a strong organization, you need to have strong rules in place. And Paulo Costa is flouting those rules and using memes to get away with it. And he's actually pulling it off, which is crazy. Guys, let me know, am I like way off the mark? Have I read this completely wrong? Did Costa actually sign that deal? Because if he did sign that deal, then Paulo Costa is on $1 million a fight for the next 4 fights, and he's just a dickhead. And if he didn't sign that deal, then he's playing with us, the fans, and we're the dickheads. Someone in this room is a dickhead right now, and I don't know who it is. I hope you guys let me know down in the comments. Guys, if you've been enjoying these videos, maybe consider subscribing. Have a think about this one. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'll see you all in the next one.